since we're only a 15-person crew. Do you know much about
It's
what
all
we're
good.
doing here, Kendra?
I have a high-level idea,
Yeah.
but if you want to give me a quick intro, I kind of always roll with things. So
I would rather Bobby give a quick level intro because
cool.
you did your homework, so you're allowed to come. And I saw Fran's homework too.
Well, good.
Bobby has got some
Good.
Moroccan hair over there.
Oh, it's kind of crazy. It does its own thing.
It's fantastic.
It is really good.
Well, that's good.
I would kill for hair like that.
That's good. So go ahead. So what intro do you want? I'm sorry, you guys went out real quick here on my connection.
Oh, okay. I asked Kendra if she knew what we were doing with this Clean Slate program, and she wanted an overview. And rather than me giving it, I thought you could give it.
Great. Well, Zach is effectively removing the stress from my life. How does that sound?
That sounds damn awesome.
Really going through setting up a system so that we can, look at everything on our task list and have it, have kind of a dashboard so that, it's a lot less digging through emails, digging through trying to figure out, when is this appointment? What am I supposed to be doing on this project? And having a single dashboard, primarily with Trello as our base that we can work out of and have, get everything out of our head into Trello and be able to track projects there.
Perfect. I love it. And I mean, reducing stress is a huge win that amplifies to every other area of your life. You can be more effective, more present, and more powerful.
Right. How'd I do, Zach?
You did very well. Star student. Hey, Victoria, welcome. So the reason I'm having Kendra on, she's been on the podcast a couple times and is just a dynamo in a lot of different areas. But the one area that I actually really appreciate her most is her how she thinks of systematically with personal productivity. And we have different perspectives, and that's the reason why I want her on. We're both very visual. We both like to see our landscape. We both really like to plan what we're going to do and organize it and prioritize it. But we do it different ways. So the two apps that Kendra uses are Todoist and Asana. And she uses Asana for her overall business, where she's doing a little bit more collaboration, and that tool is great for that, just like Trello, and Todoist for more of her personal end of things. Mm-hmm. And I feel like where the Clean Slate, what we're trying to do with Clean Slate is create a dashboard of your work using Kanban and Trello. I think what Kendra, what you really do well is to create that dashboard, but instead of in your to-do list manager, which you use and you use to navigate your world, you do it more with your calendar. And you have a great system that I've dug into a few times before, but I'm sure it's updated and improved since then. Another thing that you do that I do not, I just don't have the willpower for it. So good on you for it. And I'm sure there's some people in here that might have more willpower than me. But you're very good about scheduling tasks. So if you want to do something at a specific time, you get in that mindset and you're like, okay, I've got the mornings for creative writing work. I know that's when I'm flowing at my best. I'm going to be doing it this then. Same with, okay, I'm going to do my review at this specific time and plan out my week and kind of get into boss mode right there. And then I'm going to take my pants off and they're not coming on for 48 hours. And that's in my calendar. And even if Zach calls me, we're not hanging out because it's pants off time. And I've scheduled that and forget you. So not that we're hanging out now because you're up in Canada. We'll have to come back and visit Austin. But that's basically what I wanted to do. And I thought Zoom would be a great opportunity for you to actually show people the nuts and bolts of how you think and what it looks like.
Definitely. So that's a great intro, and there's a lot of different things to unpack there. And I love how you start how we're similar and how we are different. So for me, a big thing is I do keep work and personal separate, just because for me, there's a lot of things that happen in work and it's very complex. So some people I find when they start meshing the two together, it becomes overwhelming. So, and I also like to compartmentalize. That's a big part of how I plan and how I renew my energy. So when I'm doing work, I'm very work focused. And when I'm doing personal life, I'm very personal life focused. So I use those to kind of get a grasp as far as like what my priorities are, my task list. And then what I do is I go in my calendar and I basically block off time to do big priority tasks. And we can kind of go into that, and I can show you a few different things on my calendar. I do some color coding that's really different and unique, that is really helpful for visual and non-visual people. Zach, from what you know from your current students, what do you think would be the 1, 2, or 3 things that we should really cover that will be most helpful for them?
I think a lot of people what they like about Trello and see in it is the ability to label and color code based off labeling. So how you created your color coding system, maybe where it started from and how it grew into that would be a good place to kick off. And then I'm sure there'll just be a little bit more natural questions.
I can go in so many directions about
that.
this.
In the second thing I'd be super interested in, because you're very disciplined about it, and this is what we're going to be discussing next week, is your specific weekly planning cadence and how that you do that. Because I'm just realizing that's another difference we have. I do it in one shebang and you split it up. And then you separate work and personal, and I don't. So maybe someday I'll get there. So I guess starting out, maybe you could even just flick on your calendar and start discussing what it is and why you set it up that way.
Perfect. Yeah. And just, I want to preface too, because a lot of times people come to me and they ask me similar questions to Zach as well, which system works the best or which tool? And the reality is, the best tool is the one that works well for you. It's not Zach's way or my way. There may be a few things that you really love, and there may be some things you're like, this girl is crazy. So find what works for you and take that. And if there's something that doesn't work for you, just glaze right over it. So I just want to say, because we do have very different styles, and I really love a lot of what Zach does, but my stuff is very different. So if I hit share screen, that should give me the sharing screen, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, we didn't go over Zoom 101.
It's all good. I was having some challenges.
Oh, look at how sexy. That is like, gosh, I can't even show you my calendar now that I've seen that.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let me give you just.
And I did not give her a heads up, really. Like, clean up your calendar because we're going to show people. No, this is natural.
No, this is it. And I've been on vacation, so my calendar is going to look very different. This is actually my first day back, so I have.
Fran chatted swoon.
It gets sexier, trust me. So a few things to note here, kind of what's going on is a key principle of what I do is I choose 2 to 3 things that are really important to me in my life. One of them being, my personal life and experiences, which you'll see in pink. Blue is business. Purple is my branding, my personal brand. And then also green stands for kind of balance and renewal for me. So what I do is I choose a couple different categories and I color code by that. So I'll show you kind of this is what my week starts with. We'll give you a clear zoom forward here.
Oh, so you start with a like bare bones, like this is kind of what I want. And then here's an update that I made to the system. So what I do is I map out, and my time zones are changing a lot right now. So normally my morning routine is like 6 to 8 or whatever. But what I do is I block out kind of my morning routine. I block out my lunch. And then I also block out, let me see if I can bring this up here a little bit, power down and tech like ritual. That's something that I kind of keep in there as well, is like shutting down for the day. So green is balance for me. It's when I'm renewing. It's when I am kind of giving my brain a break. And so that's why that's green. Blue is business. So you can see we talk about how we plan separately. My business planning happens on Friday. So this is kind of the template that I start with every week. I map out my kind of big objectives, and then each week they're actually repeating. So if you go into these, they repeat every week. And then when I go into plan my week, do you repeat? Is that one on Monday repeated every Monday, or do you have it repeat 5 days a week?
I think for me, what I found is doing just one for each day tends to work better, because sometimes I edit the Monday depending on what I have going on. And if it's the same one that repeats Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if I make an edit, sometimes it shifts the whole shebang.
That's why I brought that up, because I thought
It's a very good.
saw
Yeah.
that's why you might have done that. Cool.
That's a very good question. So think about this, how you can apply this back to your life. First is, what are a couple of your big priorities? One may be work, one may be personal, and one may be fitness, or art, or a big project you have that you're working on. Maybe you're building a side hustle. Choose 3 colors that feel in congruence with that and use that to map out your week. And what's great about that is that I can instantly look at my calendar, and let's just go back a few weeks, because sometimes it gets really crazy. Let me go back to like this week right here. There's a lot going on. Hang on, there's some personal things in there you shouldn't see. You can see like things.
I've seen some good stuff
around.
in some Trello boards. I'm not going to say who or what, but I've seen some stuff.
So you can see how I can only imagine the things you've seen. And then like if I have time off work, I start taking things off my calendar. And it changes depending on kind of what's going on. But like, look at this week. You can see how there's tons of blue, which means I'm working my ass off. And I can see, okay, here I'm moving out of my apartment that weekend, so I'm trying to get a ton of work done before I moved in.
I remember that week.
Yeah, I was insane.
Yeah. You were fine. You
can kind of see what happens though is when you look at your calendar and you color code, you can say, well, man, I got a lot of work on this week. So I need to plan in some breaks in the evening. I need to plan in some renewal in the evening, or some personal things on the weekend, because I'm going to be totally business brain, work brain all week. So that's kind of one way that I use color coding, is that I use it to have a virtual assessment really quickly of like what's happening in my life. So if we go back here, you can see right here, I have built in my calendar a prep for call with Zach.
Oh, well, thank you for preparing. Looks good.
Yeah. Well, it was more of just put makeup and pants on, but
I said you didn't have to put pants on. It would just be shoulder up.
I know.
Shoulder up.
I've been traveling all week, and then I was off last week, so I was like pretty all day.
I've got a few things in here. I knew just seeing your calendar would bring some things up. Just this one's a little bit more personally curious. You went to a public speaking conference, so maybe that's why you're so on it right now. And you think of that as personal, not business related?
It can be. That's where it gets a little bit each way. This one was more of a creative thing for me, so I just kind of put it as pink. But yeah, you could definitely label that as personal. I'm taking time off work. But yeah, that could really actually be seen as business as well.
Okay. That was a less interesting question. I was just personally curious about it. A more interesting question is lunch, and why, and maybe the backstory behind you carving out an hour for your lunch.
Definitely. So this is something, I am a recovering workaholic, and I always like to say that I practice work-life balance for workaholics. So that comes out of the fact that I would be working throughout the day, and I would go to lunch and come back and be like, I still feel crazy. And then I realized I didn't really take a lunch, because during lunch I was, checking my email, I was taking phone calls, I was doing all this. I just wasn't actually sitting down and eating and having a moment. And so what I realized when I started really thinking about what are a few things I could do to create more balance and self-care in my day, because that's not something I excel at naturally, is I needed to actually take a lunch break. And one of the things I love about scheduling my day out this way is I actually see what I have going on. So for example, here it's like, okay, I can see that I'm going to be traveling all day here, and there's not a whole bunch of other things scheduled right now. My life's a little bit different because I'm in an RV, so I can't schedule much. Like when I was at home, I scheduled so much more. But in general, I can see that I'm going to be traveling for 2 days a week right here. I know I need to build in some off nights for me. I'm an introvert. So the same thing with lunch is I need to make sure that I'm actually scheduling my day in a way where I get a full lunch break. And that's why it's also green, is because it's a self-care thing. And so I put that in there, and it's a reminder to take a lunch break, as crazy as that sounds. But we get sometimes caught up in this, chaos of life and sprint for productivity and efficiency. And we forget that a big part of that is actually renewal. And so if you want to be more productive, sometimes you have to slow down to go fast.
Perfect. I'm glad you were able to share that story. I'm trying to think, did I take a lunch day? It was a little late, but I took one. um, uh, Notifications. Do you have those turned on or not?
I try not to.
Okay.
Sometimes it just does that organically.
Yeah.
What I do is in the morning, I actually set alarms for all my meetings on my phone and set my phone out of the way. It's like a weird little thing that I do.
So you set, how much time do you give yourself for those notifications?
So for example, I knew that we had to be on this call at 5. Ideally, we were hopping on 15 minutes early, and I needed to put makeup, pants, and fix my hair. So I said, I need to get up at 4. I took a nap right before this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was 45 minutes to get ready. So I just think about, typically for calls, I do like 10 minutes. Or if I need to prep before the call, just look over some notes, I might set some time before that. 5 to 10 minutes before each call is typically what I do.
So you set the notifications. You just kind of, do you
I set
in the
an
morning?
alarm on my phone.
Okay. Okay. And
So
you just
meetings.
say,
That's for meetings, yeah.
okay.
And then throughout the day, I'm toggling back and forth on my calendar, just organically back and forth. People that are like addicted to email, I'm like addicted to calendar.
Yeah, it's a less common addiction. I was with a coaching call with Mike, who's not on this call. I think he's at a conference right now, but might watch the recording. Hi, Mike. He convinced me that I needed to take my email off my phone, because it was like the third thing I was doing in the morning. I was like, this doesn't, and there's so many emails you can't really answer from your phone
for sure,
because there's just more context and links and things that you would need.
And I think honestly what's helpful is, for example, so today I knew I had a certain amount of time to work. There was like a Facebook Live event that I wanted to watch specifically, which I then booted and didn't even do. But I was like, I literally have like half a day to work. So ironically, looking at my calendar, I was like, and then I've got the call with Zach. And so I was like, I really have to stay on it. So to me, it kind of keeps me accountable. How much time do I actually have to work today? And if I want to get something done today that feels like I moved something significant forward, I've got to stay focused, because I don't have, and even tomorrow, I've got a chunk of time in the morning, and then I've got 2 calls in the afternoon. And then after that, my brain's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So, the thing that's interesting that I find about this is that you don't realize how much you're actually putting into your day. And when you think about your tasks, as far as like how much time does it take to do ABC, and you start mapping it on your calendar, you realize why you don't think you don't get everything done. It's because you're trying to fit 12-hour days into 8-hour days. And so that's what's really the most helpful thing for me, because it might even, one thing I do on my calendar is I map out drive time. So if I've got to drive for an hour, that goes on my calendar. Now, you can choose how detailed you want to get in this. I used to get really, really, really detailed. I've started like blocking. So now it's like, work is a block here, planning is a block. But I used to plan even more in depth. But if I have a really important task, for example, when I was preparing for the Think Better, Live Better conference, a big speech that I did, I blocked off like the first hour and a half of my morning, and it was like speech preparation for like 3 weeks. And because that was a big task that was very, very important, it actually went on the calendar. So you can kind of use your discretion for what works for you. Some people don't like getting that detailed. Some people do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of a mix. I do like, especially if it's a meeting, I try to put as much information as I can in the description of the meeting notes. That's something that I use to just prime me. Like, okay, this is what I need to have. Like, here's the link to the Trello board, or here's the Google Doc, or here's the Evernote link that we're going to be discussing. So I always try to get as much as I need, but it's probably not as detailed as some, but probably more detailed than others. And what I'm really liking, especially with the color coding and taking the time off and actually scheduling, okay, business admin. That's not something that a lot of people think like, oh, admin that'll magically get done at any time. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you say from 9 to 1, this is the time I have. And while 4 hours seems like a lot of time, when you get cracking and then it's 10 and you're like, oh no, I only have 3 hours left, it does force some urgency to make you actually focus on your work, where like you were saying before, I think a lot of people think, I got all day to do it. And by the time it's 11, then it's time for lunch. And then my energy is going to be down in the afternoon. And I get to the end and it is like, I didn't do anything. And this is sad.
Yeah. You bring up,
go ahead.
You bring up 2 really important things there, Zach. One, which is something I learned from Mike Vardy, which is day theming, which I'll touch on that very briefly. There's a reason why business admin is exactly where it's at. And the other one is energy. So first, day theming, which I learned from Mike Vardy. He's another productivity coach. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So day theming is kind of, for me, typically on a standard week. I'm on like vacation brain right now because I'd have the week off and last week off. Monday is an admin day. Tuesday and Thursday are deep creative work. Wednesday is kind of a swing day. It could be work or something else. And then Friday is kind of like a catch-up day. So I try not to schedule work on Friday because something always falls in there. And then so basically what happens is, this also kind of relates to energy, is I think about when I come in on Monday, what am I organically going to do? It is not knock it out of the park and create and get a bunch of deep work done. I kind of need to ease into the week. So what I do is I schedule Mondays. They're just kind of overall an admin day for me. And that means following up with my accountant, sending my accountant things, processing email, planning, catching up little weird different things. It's kind of like a weird catch-up. Now, there are things that do get slated in there, but I just get real with myself and I honor my energy. The same thing with deep work. I do most of the important work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I leave Wednesday in the middle to kind of usually like breathe a little bit. And then Friday is a great day for education, a great day for planning, because nobody wants to get anything done on Friday. All they want to do is end the week and get it done. So what I would ask yourself is, what is your natural energy cadence in your week? Yours could be totally opposite. You could be like, you know what, Mondays, I'm a rock star. I'm ready to get this done. I'm ready to get my big MITs for the week done, most important tasks. But the reality is I see so many people wanting to be that person who knocks it out of the park on Monday, and they're not that person. And so instead, what I would encourage you to think is, what do I naturally energetically do? And build your workflows in your life to match that. Because even if you say, I'm going to knock it out of the park on Monday, if you just keep like tripping over yourself every Monday, it doesn't change who you are. And so I try to embrace who I am. And so that's why I am not a rock star on Mondays. And I'm okay with that. And also too, I'll get emails or weird tasks. And I'm like, Monday, I punt them all to Monday. I'm like, oh, like today I had to figure out some weird tech task. And I was like, just fix that random thing Monday. Instead of dealing with it during my deep work days. Deep work days, I'll be writing email, I'll be writing copy, I'll be doing deep creative work. But I'm not going to try and do that on Monday. So that's kind of how I do business admin. I do day theming. So what are your days? Maybe one day's education, one day for you. If you have multiple jobs, this is a big one because I run 2 businesses. It used to be that Tuesdays and Thursdays were just client work and the middle day, Wednesday, was my personal brand. Now it's kind of flopped because it's taken up much more time. But think about what are the themes in your life, in your week, and how can you compartmentalize? Because then you can go deep on those days and you can stop task switch so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another powerful point. And totally love the themes. Did you ever put the themes into your calendar? Do you have a place where they toggled on, or you just started to memorize them after time?
Right. I think when I originally did, what I would have done would have been like at the top, I would have just been like biz admin. And then, maybe I would have made like all the themes. I'm super visual. So it would have been like biz admin, and it would be like deep work. And then I would like do something like this in the very beginning. And so each day would kind of have its own theme, but then eventually over time, now it's just, my brain only knows how to think that way.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this for a year and a half this way. So and it's the same thing that, let me delete these real quick, I'm a calendar Nazi. It's the same thing as this, where it's like, you can see I had a call that got scheduled here. My business admin normally goes up. So I just kind of shift things around a little bit, but I kind of have a starting template that I work with. And what's really great about this is, what are your priorities? So right now I'm living in an RV, so I can't plan hardly anything. But normally at home, I may have, I'm not really a big fitness person. I'm not going to lie to you. But if I was a big fitness person, I would have, my workout is, here. And I would slot that in. Here's the cool thing. Zach's like, hey, I want to catch up on Tuesday night. Say I work out one time a week because that's about all I work out. Zach, hey, I want to work out, or I want to hang out on Tuesday night. And I'm like, I want to hang out with Zach, but my priority is every week I have a repeating event for a workout. So instead, what I can do is say, oh, you know what? I'll just move my workout to Wednesday. So put your priorities on your calendar, create them as reoccurring events. And then as your life changes, you can actually see what is happening in your life, and you can find space to put it somewhere else. Oh, if I wanted to, I could work out Friday night, or I could come up here and work out Friday morning, and so that's one thing that's been really helpful for me is if you read the book, The One Thing, they talk a lot about scheduling time for the one thing, and so think about what are one or two priorities that you talk about making time for and you never do. Put them on your calendar as a repeating event, schedule them and move them around with your life. And if you keep deleting them, maybe they're not a priority, because our priorities are what show up on our calendar and in our pocketbook. Time and money. That's where your priorities are.
Well said. So you got this template. So this is something that anybody could do. You're pretty specific about, okay, for your morning routine, set one up for Monday, set one up for Tuesday, set one up for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so you can edit and move them around and not mess up the whole calendar. Maybe you can walk us through, let's say, when actually do you do your planning? And then after that, how do you do it?
Perfect. Great. So I plan business and personal life a little separately. I don't think that's the best for everyone. It's just the best that works for me. So I do all my personal or my business planning on Friday. I decide basically what are my big tasks for the next week. And then I do all my personal planning typically on Sundays. One thing that has been absolutely life-changing for me is every Sunday, I sit down and basically do weekly planning for my personal life. And so if someone says, hey, Kendra, I want to get coffee soon. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to hang out with that person. I'm like, yeah, let me check in with you on Sunday. And I just literally make a note to look at my schedule. Now, granted, I can pop in there and say, hey, I'm free this day. You can do that. But what I do is I sit down on Sundays and I assess, hey, what do I got going on this week? What does my workflow look like? Because by this point, I already kind of know what work is looking like because I've planned it the Friday before. What does my schedule look like? What do I need to get done this week? I'm a huge experience collector. So I might be like, you know what? There's not much happening in my week down here, right? I don't have many evening things planned. So let me go find a couple cool things happening this week. And one of the biggest things I've ever done actually, let me tell you a story real quick because I think it'll have bigger impact. I was sitting at a table with 12 really high-level entrepreneurs that I felt very unqualified to be sitting at a table with. And we're all nerdy. So we're talking about habits and health and mindset. And this question is posed of, if tomorrow all your habits were erased and you only got to keep one good habit and you're going to use this one good habit to get your life back on track, what habit would you choose? So everyone starts going around the table and you hear meditation and you hear very predictable things. And then they get to me. And I'm a weirdo, so I'm not really predictable. And I said, my weekly planning appointment. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, every Sunday I have an appointment with myself. It used to be on my calendar, but now it's automatic. So it's not on there right now. But every week I sit down and basically plan my entire week out. And one, it lets me get real about what's happening. It helps me get clear on what my priorities are or are not. And it helps me really evaluate what do I want this week to look like before Monday and the chaos of life happens. And I get to put my priorities on my calendar before the rest of the world takes over. So I would highly encourage you to set a weekly planning appointment with yourself. For me, doing it at the same time every week works best. And that could just be for your business. It could be for your personal life. But that's been a super game changer for me.
Absolutely. And I would say the same. It was in the Facebook group today. Jorge was actually mentioning, my clean slate needs cleaning. I need to get back on track. And while you're using your calendar and you also use other apps to manage your time, this entropy happens, and you've got to you've got to pick things back up and replan and reprioritize and get in. I like what you've said more than one time is just get real with yourself. Like what really can get done. And unlike you, I'm not as disciplined, but it does happen every week. So it's either Friday afternoon or Saturday morning or Sunday morning or Sunday evening or Monday morning. But it does.
What kind of planning is that? What the hell is that?
I don't know. It's like working out. I don't schedule my workouts. I just happen to work out before this, but I do work out 4 times a week. It's like a feeling for me. It's like,
Gotcha.
Anxiety levels are getting high, must lift weights. And it's same with like anxiety levels getting high, must plan week. So
maybe
it happens on the bookends. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think that for me, I think about energetically what works for me, and it may just be that you're trying to plan at the wrong time of day, and the thing is, you got to do what works for you. At the end of the day, it's Zach can give you a tip, I can give you a tip, freaking Fred Flintstone can give you a tip. They're all great for that person, and you have to find what works best for you. That would give me anxiety. But that's because I
think actually really the suggestion I would give if somebody asked, hey, do you have a suggestion for this, is I would say yes, schedule it. Put reminders, put that gym bag in front of the door, put your planner right front and center, put a sticky note up, ask Suri to remind you. I actually get I don't know if you know this, but I still get a text from you every single week from If Then Then that says, hey, let's make this week epic. What are you going to do?
Like what's one thing that you're doing that's going to make this week memorable?
That's what it is. I've read it so many times, but I didn't actually remember it.
I still get it too. I get it every week.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, it works. It's right on Sunday. Maybe that would be a good trigger for me to.
That's why it's on Sunday, because I wanted it to be when I was planning.
Yeah. Good. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, and then you bring up one good point, and this is maybe a way to do what I do on a micro level, is you're talking about things entropy and things get hairy, things get crazy, right? And so in my weekly planning process, you might enjoy seeing this. This is kind of what I do on Friday. Is I have a little list here. It's very simple. I have to process my desktop. So every week I make sure at the end of the week my desktop is cleaned off. If you look at my desktop right now, it's like, can you see it? I don't know if you can see it, probably not.
No, you've got your tab.
Okay. I tried to move it, and then Zoom amateur over here, clearly. So I clean off my desktop. I use a sticky notes app, so I clean that off with a bunch of different things I paste over there, and I have an in progress folder on my desktop that I clean off. And I process my Facebook inbox. So these are things like, I noticed that I was like always forgetting to respond to Facebook messages. So I made a reminder.
I was really bad about that.
I do it in my weekly Friday planning.
That's great.
I plan my next week. I decide on basically my 3 MITs for the week. And then I have an email. I don't know if I've talked to you about this before. I have a folder that all my marketing emails go to, and I read them like once a week, and that's it. And that's alone has been great.
I like that. Because my Evernote inbox is getting pretty full from me forwarding different emails.
Right.
Curious about
well, and that's also why you see that my weekly planning process is big. But you know what's happening here is like 2/3 of this is like reading my freaking marketing emails, because I do marketing for a living. So what I would encourage you to think is, what are those 2, 3, 4, 5 tasks that you're like, oh crap, I need to get back to that person. Oh man, my desktop's a wreck. Oh man, I need to whatever. Make a list of those things, toss them in a calendar thing and then make it a repeating event, and then just clean them out. So when it goes to the week, and if I forget to respond to a message, I'm like, no worries, I'm going to catch that on Friday.
Perfect.
It's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I can see how that would let a lot of open loops, you have a place for them. So it's just like you're not worried about getting back to that Facebook message, because you trust yourself to actually get to it. So it's very similar to
a task system in place.
That you've got a system that you trust. Sure. On Fridays you've got that checklist, and it's something that you've set in place. Similar to somebody asks you to do something, you're going to write it down. You're going to put it in Todoist. You're going to put it in Asana, and
maybe it's processing an inbox. You're like, hey, so and so, I emailed this thing to a folder or an Evernote or wherever your catch-all is, and you process that folder. So, and the other thing that I would say, and this is something that nobody told me about productivity or personal development or these kinds of topics is that everything changes. So just as we as humans change, so did my systems. So this process that you see here did not always look like this. It used to be longer. It's been shorter. Take things off and add things as your life changes. At some point, I may get a lot better at processing my Facebook inbox, or it may not be a priority anymore. So when you see things either A, start to not work for you, or B, you need to add something to make something work for you, know that productivity is just like any other practice or thing that you do, is that it will change. Because I think a lot of times with productivity, people will say, okay, I'm going to do my morning routine and it's going to be this. And then 6 weeks later, like, why the hell does this morning routine not work? And it's like, well, because you've changed. Mm-hmm. And so acknowledge and be prepared for when things don't work or you need to edit or change. If tomorrow, all of a sudden, Sunday planning didn't work for me, I just wouldn't do it. I'm not romanticized about Sunday planning. It's just what works for me. And I used to also be way more detailed on my calendar. I don't do that as much anymore because now I kind of time block the big areas. But that's something that nobody ever told me about productivity. And then I would be like, why did I learn all these awesome, badass tactics and now they're not working? And it's like, well, because you've leveled up, you've changed. The stressors in your life has changed. The tasks in your life have changed. The projects in your life have changed. What works for you changes. So that's something that I learned along the way that I wish someone would have told me earlier in the productivity game.
Yeah. That's something I see a lot of times. People who get on calls with productivity coaches are obviously interested in improving their selves, and a lot of times they want to improve in a lot of different areas at one time. So it's great, and it's hard to maintain. So if you're trying to do your weekly planning and your meditation and your journaling and your calendaring and like all of these different systems all at one time, you're going to have a hard time maintaining them for the long run. And that's why I've attempted to be very cognizant as we go through this month of Clean Slate, is being very selective about what habit changes and behavior changes I ask people to do. There's really only two. The first one has been the capture and collect habit. So if something could be a potential action, I want you to automatically think, oh, this is a potential action. This needs to go to Trello. So that's been the first habit. The second one is exactly the one that you're talking about right now with cleaning up your system and planning your week. And that's the second one. Frankly, it's the hardest one. And we're going to be talking about that next week. And I
think one of the most rewarding. It's so helpful. It's not sexy, but it's a life amplifier. It really does make a big difference.
There's something, I think you've probably read the book, Work the System by Sam Carpenter.
Nope, not read that.
Ooh, I need to give that to you. Yeah. He says something a lot. It's a book on process and systems and how to create a scalable business by writing what he calls SOPs, standard operating procedures, that you could then use to delegate to other people so you can keep on working on higher level stuff, or eventually just stop working or sell your company, just make a business rather than a job that you've created for yourself. I've still created a job for myself. I'm in a job right now. I will admit it. But I'm continuing to add process. Yeah, I kind of like my job. But I'm continuing to add processes. I think you do too. To that to scale. But something he says in his book that I really like is the idea of being outside and slightly elevated. You're just like looking down on everything, and you're like, oh, that can fit there, that can fit there, this can happen here. And I like how you give it very good priority in using some of your better energy on Friday. And maybe that's something I need to emulate from you, because the reason I don't always do it on Friday afternoons is because I'm a little tired. And so it's like, okay, I'll do it Saturday morning.
That's why I do it on Sundays. So this is kind of goes back to thinking about what's your natural energy cadence, because you could have all the great intentions in the world, but science shows that we have a limited amount of willpower. And also, I believe sanity. Sometimes life is crazy and there are things going on. So the reason why I do Sunday planning is because Sunday's a day where it's a little more relaxed and chill for me in my life. The rest of the week can be kind of a thunder, like a tornado, And so Sunday's kind of that day that's like my day to chill out and relax. And so it just organically happens best there. Anytime I try to do my planning when I am just completely crispy, it does not go well. And so think about if it's a priority for you and it's important to you, nominate and some of your better energy. Typically that happens in the morning. Some people are night owls. But find time to put those important pieces in play where you can actually initiate on them. Because I think sometimes too, people say, well, I want to go to the gym and I don't prioritize it. And it's like, well, when are you trying to go to the gym? Well, I'm trying to go late at night and I've worked all day. Well, no wonder. Duh. But also at the same time, you might not be a morning person and the opposite might work for you. So thinking about what is your natural energy cadence and planning your week around that, I think just stacks the deck in your favor, really.
Totally. Sam Carpenter, the author of Work the System, also talks about that and uses the term biological prime time. When is that biological prime time, and how can you make sure, and this is what's so great about your calendaring system, make sure that you use your best, and I always call it brain juice, for your most important work.
Totally.
Last week we had somebody on, Matt Cowdroy, talk about mindfulness and meditation and how it relates to productivity and stress management. And in his book that he teaches, it's called How to Be a Productivity Ninja. It's a good system.
Cool.
It's essentially getting things done, but kind of fun. It is, you've got your proactive attention, your just regular attention, and then you're like blah, and so change the toner when you're blah and write your sales copy or do your hardest, most difficult task when you've got that proactive attention, and don't wait. It's so easy to waste it. That's part of the reason why I took email off my phone, is because I'm getting up, I've got my little morning routine, and my meditation app is on my phone. So then my thumb was just going to that email, and I was like,
Totally.
I'm using my good brain juice on this stuff, and and then it opens up loops where it's like, oh, I'm thinking about that email until I have a chance to go to the computer and answer. So,
definitely. And that actually brings up a good point too, of I can share with you how I protect some of that energy, which is something you mentioned earlier. So if we look at my schedule today, you'll notice that these two events right here are coaching calls that I have with clients. They're in the afternoon, not by accident. It's very intentional. When someone tries to schedule a call with me, I pretty much, as much as I can, always try to do them on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. The reason why is because I know that I spent the big chunk of Tuesday and Thursday deep work. By the time I get to the afternoon, 2, 3, 4, fizzled, got nothing. So I put calls there. Now, if someone says, hey, Kendra, can we do a call on, Monday morning? And what I'll say is, you know what, I'm booked then, but I've got this and this available. And I might just be booked with business admin. They don't know that. That's none of their business. Yeah. But, and sometimes obviously I take calls at other times, but what I do find from my experience is when I really stick to that, I get more done. My energy is better. Everything else in my week goes better, because if I have a lot of calls all over my calendar, for me as a creative, it's very disruptive. I have a hard time getting back on task. So, and then the thing is too, is that I used to spend Friday nights at home alone because I'm an introvert, and I would go out a lot during the week. And the same thing would happen. People like, hey, you want to go out Friday night? And I literally would have personal time just blocked off Friday nights. And I'd be like, oh, sorry, I'm busy, but I'd love to get together Saturday night or next week, whatever. And nobody ever asks questions. They just assume that it's something legitimate. So I'm just like, oh, I'm booked. And so if you do create some of these kind of boundaries and zones in your calendar, I use low energy time for phone calls. And then you can just fix things or, kind of slide things into that by saying, oh, no, I'm booked then. Yeah, I'm booked, staying sane. That's what I'm booked with.
Yeah.
It's like whatever is important to you.
I really like that you bring up that point. I'm the same way. calls go in the afternoon. We've got a coach on here, a wonderful business coach, Victoria. So that could be a strategy that she uses. I also, on Fridays, typically try to get a lot of coaching calls on Fridays. I think for the similar reason why you kind of just put light weight work on your Fridays too. Because
sure.
my thought is, well, everyone's kind of kicking off Friday. We can use it more productively by doing some collaboration together.
To me, calls are deep work usually. Like they're kind of deep work sometimes for me. So I would do on Fridays.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So that's like a difference.
I'm curious then. On Thursday, you've done the deep work and then you book those 2 coaching calls. So is that double deep work?
Yeah, because I'm still in creative mode, but I'm not like writing sales copy. So I'm in the mode to get shit done, but I am kind of running out of stuff, but I'm still very focused. So I'm just not going to do it in the morning. So yeah, you make a good point. But typically, I'm still in to me, Mondays and Fridays are kind of play around days a little bit sometimes. Now I get shit done on Mondays and Fridays too, but in my brain, they're very compartmentalized. And Tuesday and Thursday is when I do most of the heavy lifting. Wednesday's the swing day for me. But they're still creative because I'm doing strategic calls. So for me, they're still lower energy because I've prepped for them in advance usually, but I'm taking a lot of questions on the fly and having to work with that on the fly a little bit. So
yeah, I've noticed it's just a different type of energy. Like this morning, I was writing. You guys might be excited. Writing my sales page for the Trello for Business course. I might have to have you take a look at it.
For sure.
And about 3 hours in, I was like, okay, well, I'm done. I don't have any more.
But all you got
in me. But I was like, okay, I've got a call at 1, and then I can work out, and I've got this thing at 5, so that works out really well. I'm curious, and I know you use a number of them, and maybe I've told you about most of them, but you've been telling me about some good ones now for scheduling calls. Do you have any tips, tools, apps, tricks?
Let me see if I can think of I think it's appointment. I think I sent you this one. This one's been one of my favorite tools in my cool. I don't know why this isn't showing up, but can you see this link? I think it's appointment.io.
Yes.
Let me look.
Isn't it assistant.io?
Assistant maybe. Let me look at my calendar thing here.
Yeah, I'd have to go into my Gmail to actually see where it is.
So it's this little doodad right here. This is super cool. I don't know why this wasn't created years ago. But let's say Zach wants to have this call with me. I think it's actually I told you to send me a calendar on this one. Okay. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. All right. So
we have totally used this together. Like I've sent you this before and you've sent me this before. Like I know we have.
So let me explain how this is a little bit different. So typical calendar scheduling tools, you have to block off a time on a calendar, yada, yada, yada. But Zach is my homie. And if Zach needs me on a Monday, I'll fit Zach in, right? So with this, what you can do is I can say, hey, Zach, I know you want to get together. I can title this, I can change the title for Clean Slate Chat. I can tell you where to meet me, Skype. You can even see, like I say, add me 24 hours before. Here's my details, and then whatever you want. Now, these will actually go
nice. It remembers locations. That's cool.
It's really cool. So a few different ones on there. And then what you can do is you can change the meeting length. So say you wanted to do an hour. And then you can manually go in and choose spots on your calendar. So typically what I do is I just kind of look around. I'm like, okay, I could do a call like here or wherever. And then you can manually choose the calls. You can go through maybe like next week. Zach's my homie, so I'll talk to him on Monday. Not at 11 p.m. though. And then you can choose up to 3 days. You insert the times into the email. This little doodad comes up down here. I always erase it, just like some promo stuff. And then what happens is I can send this to Zach, and in the email, it will be a button, and he can click it, and it will auto-schedule it on both of our calendars. And actually, you can just see I scheduled one here. When he schedules, it'll come in. Jake accepted. Kendra Wright plus Jake Thompson. You can see exactly I was scheduling that with assistant TO. You're right, assistant TO. The reason why this rocks is because you can choose things on the fly, and it's all automated. It's so cool. It's like, I don't know what I would do without this tool. They could totally charge me for it, and I would pay so much money for it. It's free.
And it's great too because you're traveling around, and we talk with people all around the country and the globe. So it's really good for time zones as well.
Yes.
It helps out with that.
It changes the time zones to that person's time zone, and then it sends it to your calendar, so it's automated. And then if you change time zones, everything shifts with it. So that's helped a lot. Versus, hey Zach, do you want to get together on Monday? Okay, cool. You're 4:00 your time, 5:00. No, forget all that. Just use Assistant TO. It's super rocking. And people, every time I use it, that no one's ever seen, they're like, what is that? It's so cool. I'm like, I know, right?
Yeah.
It saves me hours.
Love it.
Hours. Yeah.
Do you have any other schedulers that you use? Hey, Doris.
I think that's like the main one that I drive on. Have you told them about Boomerang?
Oh, no.
Boomerang is like my other crush, inbox crush. Boomerang is a tool. So let's see here. Let me find. Basically what you can do. Boomerang is a tool where, say this is an email that I want to, I'm trying to think of like the best example of doing this. This is not a good one.
Well, now we've got two coaches in. We've got Victoria and Doris. So I think a simple example we could use is you are trying to follow up with a client and land that gig, and you're not sure if they're going to respond to you.
Perfect. So you have a client, you're following up with them, a potential client. You write them an email, you're like, hey Zach, had a great call with you today. Really think we can knock out this, this, and this. Let me know what you think if you want to move forward. And then what you can do is basically go into the email. When you send it. Actually, I'll show you in the email when you go to send it. You click down here, Boomerang. So you can say in a week, if they don't respond, 1 week, if they don't reply, bring it back into my inbox. So it'll pop up back in your inbox. And then you just say, hey, Zach, I just wanted to follow up on this, and do it again. And you can just automate your replies, and it's great. And you can also say if they don't click it, if they don't open it, or regardless, maybe either way you want it to come back.
I actually do this sometimes for like events or meetings. It's like, okay, well, I have it in my calendar, but this has some cool information that I want right before this meeting. So I'm just going to boomerang it regardless. So I use that actually feature quite a bit too.
Right. Or if Zach's like, hey, I want to have you on the podcast. I'm like, you know what? I've got this new book coming out and I'd love to be on the podcast, but let's check in 2 months about this. I would boomerang it back in 2 months.
Yeah. I've used that before too.
I do a lot of that. Or someone's like, hey, Kendra, we'd love to have you come in and speak on our podcast. And it's a podcast I'm really trying to get on. But we don't have anything available until January. I'm like, perfect. I'll follow up in January. The other good thing too is that most people's inboxes are a war zone. So what we don't realize is that they just don't see it. So in general, it's a great follow-up tool of like, hey, Zach, sent you this. Can you get back to me? Hey, Zach, bump. Or the saying bump, just bump in an inbox message. And people are like, oh, I better get back to that. The other one is, instead of just typing in a long thing, I just say bump. And that's it. And so it's just like bumping it back into their inbox.
I like that. It's not mean, but it's like simple. It's like, hey, meh,
Yeah. Right, and maybe I'll put like a smiley, just
like, I like over smiling over winky, and if anybody doesn't like that, then sorry. I don't want to be thought of as passive aggressive. So
same, definitely. And I think that it's another thing too is just like maybe you cross a task off in your task manager. Like right now, I'm reaching out to Success Magazine about guest posts. Reach out to them, and it was in my task manager originally. I was like, oh, I want to get a guest post on successmagazine.com. I reached out to them, checked it off my task manager, sent them the email, but boomeranged. So now it's not in my task manager, but it's popping back up. So it keeps my task manager clean because I did the task. So I don't see it in there, but it just keeps coming back. If they don't respond, it keeps coming back. And I followed up like 3 times. Like I know that they accept these kinds of posts. So it's just getting through to the right person on the right day.
That's really good too. So I show people how to create a waiting for list if you've got outstanding tasks. But that's using Boomerang. I skip the waiting for because I trust Boomerang will put it back into. Sometimes I still add it there just in case. But that's a way to clean off your Kanban board, not have that waiting for.
The waiting. I use the waiting for, and it's great. I think the differentiation between waiting for in my task manager and something in my email is if it's something really big and really important, or there are a lot of details or links, I keep it in my task manager. if it's something like simple or basic, then yeah, I would do the email thing. Just kind of whatever works for you. Everybody kind of gets their own vibe and can choose between, yeah, I need to keep that on my front of my, like if I don't remind this client I'm not going to get paid, yeah, that's going to be in my task manager, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how I go about things too.
But yeah, I think that's such a great tip. I think the waiting for is such a good thing for remembering those tasks. I think it's the thing that's really cool is that when you become a follow-up ninja, people start to respond to you because they know you're going to keep following up and they trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Another thing that I'll say sometimes is when I'm following up with someone, if I want them to freaking reply and they're not replying, what I'll say is, hey, Zach, I just want to know if you're interested in moving forward as a client. If you're not, that's totally cool. Just let me know and I'll take you off my follow-up list. That way they know I'm not going anywhere until I respond. That email alone gets people to respond to me. It's really just boomerang of my follow-up list, but they don't know that.
I just typed something in the chat that I got from Nathan Barry, the guy who creates ConvertKit. I just thought it was a great line, so I stole it. So the subject is closing the loop, and then the text is, hey, didn't hear back from you, so I'm assuming you're not interested, and I'm going to stop following up. If anything ever changes, just get in touch. Have a great week. So it's just like, all right, we're done. The ball is in your court. I'm not going to be following up anymore. I just thought it was like a just nice way that I'm going to be happy to do that. All right. Well, Kendra, we're kind of getting on the hour mark. Cool. I'm surprised you don't use Calendly. I thought you used that one or Schedule One or anything like that.
They're just a pain in the ass.
Assistant 2 is your jam. See, the reason I like it is because I have different schedulers for different situations, and it allows me to do what you do with prioritizing your energy levels. Like, okay, I will I will give these things this time. So I've got something called a virtual coffee. So it's like from 10:30 to 11 when I'm normally taking a break anyway. We can have a quick call, and I drink a cup of coffee and we chat with somebody. So it's a good little networking technique, and I have a whole template for emails that I can send them out for people that I want to connect with. Still, you don't use it. That's fine. Assistant 2, I think.
So I think the thing too that's different is something that I'm really prioritizing is not being on phone calls. So my coaching clients,
I like being on phone calls. So.
I do. I love being on phone calls. They're fun, but they completely destroy my productivity. And so it's kind of like empty calories for me. I love it. It's great. But with my coaching clients, the way I set my coaching packages up is I do 4 calls a year. So I do a yearly coaching package, but I do 4 quarterly calls. And I prioritize, like they can reach me through email depending on the package. But then I make those calls really beefy and give them a 90-day plan. And so if I were scheduling a lot more calls, such as what you probably do, because one, you love phone calls, is that I would take Calendly or Schedule Once or a similar tool, and I would block Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 4, and I would have a repeatable link that I send to everyone to schedule a call.
Yeah.
But the difference is for me at this point, I don't get on a call unless I have to get on a call or I need to get on a call or whatever. I really try to stay away from that, and that's helped me a lot. Just get more of what matters to me done right now. It may not be that way forever, but I don't get on many calls.
I think that's a good default. You're right. Empty calories, and because meetings are easy to schedule and get everyone in the room, and you all feel good because you're talking about things. But what's actually getting
definitely? And this is what I would bring back to everyone in your Clean Slate program is what is your current empty calorie in your schedule? What's the current empty calories in your schedule? What is that thing you're doing over and over again? And on the surface, it tastes good and it feels good, but at the end of the day, it's actually not working very well and moving you towards your goals. And mine is phone calls. That's what it is right now. So
email thing.
It's tough, right? That's a good one. Email is, that one's tough. That one's real tough.
Kendra, thank you so much. That was I can't believe how much ground we covered, and then also how much I feel like is still left to uncover. But this is great. My takeaways were, visualize your work when it comes to planning your different areas of your life. So whether it be your recovery, your work, whatever priority you have for the moment, and take some of that time for yourself and visualize that work. Is there any parting piece of guidance or tips?
I'd love to know, like what are the the big one or two takeaways that everyone else on the call got? I'd be curious to kind of hear like what resonated with you or not, and what, like what's the big thing? Is there anything that you took away that you feel like you could implement quickly in your schedule and see some results or experiment with? I'd be curious to hear what everyone else said.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can just in the bottom left-hand corner if you want to unmute yourself, and if you have any ahas, because I was watching the eyes of everyone, and during different times, I know different people were like, "Oh, I want that app," or "Oh, I swooned at that calendar," was what Fran was saying earlier.
For sure.
I think, Kendra, for me, it was seeing how you solidly block that time and don't let a lot of interruptions that's deep work time, or that's, planning time. I mean, my day so many times gets taken away by clients and phone calls and whatnot, and just seeing that, that focused, it's great. So thank you.
Yeah, you definitely. And it's kind of the whole reminder of, we teach people how to treat us. We also teach them how to communicate with us. So my clients know that I'm never readily available, and we have a protocol in place if there's an emergency. So it's like in the subject line, I have them write like emergency, so that if I pop into my email, I know quickly, and I give them my phone number to text me. So you create the community, and I do this too. If you're anything like me, you create the communication patterns you want and that you don't like too. So being conscious of, hey, how can I, on my empty calories might be client communication. I think I have to be so on top of them. How do I serve them better? And how I would word that is, hey, just so you know, I'm making a few changes with client communication, and this helps me serve you better because I can be more on your work when I'm working on your pieces or whatever. So it's kind of something that I've done to curb a little bit of that communication issue. So
love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Doris, Victoria, any ahas? You guys have been here the whole time.
I do color coding of my calendar as well, and I'm very aware of energy. My energy's up in the mornings, and when I meet with my clients, I do want to give them a lot of good focus. I only meet with clients Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, because for business to business, that's a really good time to get with people. You have cancellations on Mondays and Fridays because of long weekends, and I don't like too many cancellations. And my client calls are in coaching slots, so they're like the first and third Wednesdays at 1:30, or the second and fourth Thursdays at 9. So what happens is I get fifth weekends, and it gives me some time off. But for a business client, it creates a rhythm in their business, which is the way they're going to get goals. And it creates a rhythm in our coaching, and it's just real effective. So it was nice to see how you do the prioritize your week and how you code. It was a good job.
Definitely. Thanks so much for tuning in with us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'll let everyone, I don't know if it's in your calendar, but head off to dinner or whatever you got going on after this. Kendra, thank you so much again. We'll post this to YouTube and share it with everyone else in the Clean Slate community. And good luck with your travels. So you said you're heading back to Canada?
Yeah, right now I'm in the Midwest, heading up towards Canada and running from the heat a little bit. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, I'm super easy to reach on the internet. You can find me at heykendra.com, and you can shoot me an email at Kendra, Kendra, at heykendra.com. So as Zach said, I'm quite the productivity nerd and love to chat about productivity and efficiency. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk soon.